He made a devastating mistake, a tale of heartbreak and betrayal. After immersing yourself in this video, we invite you to join our community by subscribing to this channel. Engage with us, your thoughts matter. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine I would end up here, facing this moment. I was raised in a small town, a place where friendly waves accompanied every passing car, and the allure of front porches beckoned with warmth and familiarity. My dreams were once so clear: to marry the man I adored, to dwell in a snug house surrounded by a garden, and to weave a life brimming with warmth and serene happiness. Yet, beneath the surface, shadows loomed, threatening to unravel the delicate tapestry of my hopes. For a fleeting moment, it felt as though that dream had finally materialized. Jason and I tied the knot while we were still fresh from the college experience, our youth still echoing in our hearts. He was my beloved, my closest confidant, and the very essence of my sanctuary. In those early years, we were stripped of material wealth, yet we clung to one another with an intensity that defined our existence. For a fleeting moment, I clung to the hope that it would suffice. In retrospect, the signs were unmistakable, lurking in the shadows, waiting to be acknowledged. Little ones, moments that slipped away in an instant, leaving me to wonder if they ever truly mattered. But isn't that just the way it always unfolds? Long before the inevitable collapse, the cracks begin to surface. It all began on that fateful day we stepped into the little house on Willow Creek Avenue, a place that would soon hold secrets and stir emotions we never anticipated. It was a humble abode, worn and weary, with paint flaking away and floors that groaned underfoot. Yet to us, it held an undeniable charm that felt just right. The garden in the back was a chaotic wilderness, wildflowers entwined with stubborn weeds, and still, my heart ached with affection for it. It belonged to us, a treasure forged in the fires of our shared dreams, a sanctuary for a fresh start, where hope flickers in the shadows of our past. It was then that I encountered Mr. Bennett. He was our landlord, a man in his early 60s, with silver hair and warm brown eyes that held a glimmer of something deeper, something unsettling, as if they were always on the verge of revealing a hidden truth. On that fateful first day, he approached us with a resolute handshake and a warm laugh, recounting the dramatic transformations the neighborhood had undergone through the years. He appeared warm and gentle, reminiscent of a beloved grandfather. Yet there was an unsettling depth behind his eyes that hinted at untold stories and hidden sorrows. Back then, he was just a fleeting thought, never lingering in my mind. He made infrequent visits, one to repair the fence that had been violently uprooted by the storm, another to ensure the heating was functioning properly before the biting cold of winter descended. Jason felt a surge of gratitude, while I maintained a veneer of politeness. He was merely a landlord, but beneath that facade lay a world of unspoken stories and hidden struggles. Only a neighbor. Yet subtle changes started to unfold, creeping in unnoticed at first. Jason found himself on the road more frequently, each journey pulling him further from the familiar comforts of home. Endless days stretched into agonizing weeks, and soon it seemed as though he was absent more often than he was present. Initially, I sought to fill the heavy silence with trivial pursuits, tending to the garden, experimenting with baking, and transforming the smallest corners of our home, desperately trying to infuse it with a sense of belonging. I convinced myself that everything was okay. I convinced myself that solitude did not equate to loneliness. Mr. Bennett began to appear with increasing regularity. Initially, it didn't bother me. Having someone to confide in felt like a rare treasure, especially when they noticed the vibrant new roses I had painstakingly planted or the meticulous arrangement of the flower boxes that adorned the porch. He was ever watchful, deeply thoughtful, constantly probing if I required anything at all. Yet, gradually, his visits started to carry an unsettling weight. On a sweltering afternoon, I found myself kneeling in the dirt, meticulously pruning my tomato plants, when suddenly, his shadow loomed over me. I looked up, and there he was, a smile on his face, the same familiar grin that had always held a world of unspoken emotions. We exchanged words about the weather, delving into the struggle of keeping those pesky squirrels at bay in the garden. Yet, as I laughed at his words, his gaze held onto my face with an intensity that left me feeling utterly vulnerable. "There, are you happy here?" he asked suddenly, his voice dropping to a whisper, thick with unspoken emotion. The question lingered in the air, a weighty presence that felt far more significant than it ought to have been. My heart raced as I paused, uncertainty gripping me tightly. Without hesitation, I replied, "Jason and we are utterly captivated by this place." But even as the words left my lips, a knot of unease coiled within me. Because lately, Jason was rarely present in the house. And even in his presence, it was as if he remained a ghost, haunting the edges of reality. Silence hung heavily at the dinner table, and on those nights we lay in bed, back to back, feeling like distant strangers in our own home. I kept all of that from Mr. Bennett. I simply cannot, yet I can't shake the feeling that he was already aware. He smiled at me that day, a slow, knowing smile that sent a shiver down my spine. At times, he murmured, "One can easily overlook the profound significance of having a person who truly listens." I convinced myself it was all just a figment of my imagination. It was merely a conversation between neighbors, or so it seemed. Yet, there was an intensity in his words that lingered, haunting me even after he had disappeared from sight. And then arrived the night that altered the course of everything. Jason had vanished once more, leaving an unsettling silence in his absence. As I nestled deeper into the couch, lost in the pages of my book, the sudden chime of the doorbell shattered the stillness, sending a jolt through my very core. The clock approached 8, and the darkness outside deepened, wrapping the world in an unsettling shroud. My heart raced. I had no idea someone would show up. My chest constricted with a heavy weight as I approached the door, my fingers quivering ever so slightly on the handle. It was Mr. Bennett, the man whose presence sent a shiver down the spine, igniting a storm of unspoken fears and unresolved tensions in the air. His smile was warm, yet it held an undercurrent of something deeper, a flicker of unspoken emotions just beneath the surface. "I happen to be in the neighborhood," he remarked, his voice laced with an unsettling nonchalance. "I wanted to reach out and see how things are going." I strained to mask my unease with a smile as I stepped back, allowing him to enter, the air thick with unspoken tension. It had become a routine for him to drop by, yet I found myself grappling with the unsettling realization of why I had ever deemed that acceptable. We sat in the living room, the air thick with unspoken words, just like we always did. Yet, that night, an unsettling shift hung in the air. The air thickened, each silence stretching into an eternity. His gaze was unwavering, and when it finally shifted, it felt as though he was merely feigning distraction. He moved closer, the room filled with tension that was hard to ignore. His closeness was undeniable, and it unsettled me deeply. I let out a nervous laugh at his words, drawing my knees tightly to my chest, desperately attempting to shrink away from the moment, struggling to create a chasm in a bond that once felt unbreakable. He whispered. He shifted slightly, his hand uncomfortably close to mine. "It's a rare thing to encounter someone like you, a person who truly hears you, a person who genuinely invests their heart and soul." The words, seemingly innocent, carried an undercurrent that hinted at deeper truths waiting to be unveiled. His tone was anything but. I stood paralyzed. Every instinct within me roared to escape, to rise, to flee the confines of that room. Yet I found myself unable to do so. My legs betrayed me, refusing to move as panic surged within me. My voice had vanished into the void. He became acutely aware. His smile wavered, a fleeting shadow crossing his face. "I never intended to make you feel this way," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper, laden with regret. Emily, I need you to understand just how much you are valued. You possess a unique brilliance that sets you apart from the rest." As he uttered my name, a shiver coursed through me, a visceral reaction that I couldn't shake off. He stood up abruptly, brushing his palms nervously against his sides, an attempt to wipe away the weight of the moment that hung heavily in the air. "I suppose I should let you return to your evening," he said, a grin flickering across his face once more. Yet this smile carried a different weight. It was razor-thin, compelled. I stood there, heart pounding, as I watched him walk away, Not a single breath escaped my lips until the door finally clicked shut behind him. In the suffocating darkness, I remained frozen, my gaze locked on the door, each beat of my heart echoing like a thunderclap in my chest. A wave of shame washed over me, filled with dread, overwhelmed by uncertainty. A part of me ached to reach out to Jason, to lay bare the turmoil swirling within me. But what could I possibly say? That I would allow an elderly man to invade my personal space? That I had forced a smile at his tales while a storm of turmoil raged within me? Fear gripped me at the thought that Jason might not believe my words. Or even worse, that he would turn his anger towards me. The days that followed melded into a haze of uncertainty. Mr. Bennett began to appear with increasing frequency. At times, he would weave elaborate excuses, inquiring about the plumbing or presenting mail that had mistakenly found its way to his doorstep. At times, for reasons that remained shrouded in mystery. With every passing moment, the distance that separated us felt as if it were collapsing, drawing us closer to an inevitable confrontation. I convinced myself it was nothing, but deep down, a storm was brewing. He felt an overwhelming sense of isolation, that I was succumbing to paranoia. But in the stillness of the night, as I lay wide awake in bed, my mind was consumed by the intensity of his gaze upon me. The transformation in his compliments was palpable, evolving from mere polite observations to something laden with weight and significance. Your brilliance is truly extraordinary. Your presence carries an undeniable softness that captivates the heart. In a world so consumed by noise, discovering a soul who genuinely listens feels like an elusive dream. That moment haunted my thoughts, an unrelenting echo in the silence. His hand rested on the couch, a silent testament to the weight of unspoken words. His voice, uttering my name, carried a weight that suggested it meant something far deeper. A sense of uncertainty gripped me as I stood precariously on the brink of the unknown. And then, one fateful evening, it escalated beyond all expectations. In the dim light of the kitchen, I stood over the cutting board, the knife glinting ominously as I chopped the vegetables for dinner, each slice echoing in the silence, a prelude to the unfolding evening. The sun hung low on the horizon, casting an eerie, golden glow over the house. A light that once brought me comfort now felt heavy with unspoken tension. Yet that evening, an overwhelming weight hung in the air, as if the very walls were tightening around me. The doorbell echoed through the silence, a sharp intrusion that sent a jolt of anticipation racing through the air. The moment I felt the air shift, I understood who it was, even before my eyes dared to meet the window. Mr. Bennett stood there, a smile plastered on his face. Yet something in the air felt heavy, charged with unspoken words and hidden truths. Yet, this time, an unsettling shift lingered in the air. He stood at the threshold, uninvited, a silent tension hanging in the air. He strode through the door with an air of ownership, as if he were meant to be there all along. The air was thick with an intoxicating aroma. He murmured, his eyes drifting from the simmering pot to rest on me, a charged silence hanging between us. I wiped my hands on a towel, the smile on my face a fragile mask, barely concealing the turmoil within. It's only dinner. You always say that, he chuckled, a hint of something deeper lurking beneath his laughter. Yet, you possess an uncanny ability to transform the most mundane moments into something truly remarkable. The words hung in the air, thick with unspoken weight. He requested a moment to speak with me. Speak your truth. And then he uttered those words, revealing that he felt an undeniable connection with me. He couldn't shake the thought of me from his mind since that fateful day we crossed paths. That he held me in such high regard, that I was truly one of a kind. My heart raced with an intensity that felt almost unbearable. My thoughts spiraled in a chaotic whirlwind. I felt an overwhelming urge to flee. A primal urge to scream surged within me. Yet I remained there paralyzed. I don't know what to say, I whispered, my voice quaking with uncertainty. In that moment it struck me, this was far more than mere loneliness. This was something far more profound, a lurking peril, and I was utterly lost, paralyzed by uncertainty. Tell me if you're ready to delve into the unfolding events, or if you wish to deepen Emily's emotional turmoil and internal struggle. Let me know if you want to explore what happens next, or add more of Emily's emotions and inner conflict.